9:30, I'll call the meeting to order. Big agenda today. A lot of work to do. So again, I'm going to encourage us to be effective and efficient in our questions and debate. And let's get to work on passing a large budget and one of the services that our residents interact most with, solid waste collection. First item of business is approval of the agenda. Deputy Warden Peterson.
Thank you. Moved by Peterson and second by Councillor Mayberry. Resolved the agenda be approved as amended by changing the order of business by moving closed session and consideration of closed session to the following item 8.2.2 and consideration of agenda items 10.1 to 10.7 during deliberation of report CS 2024-49.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Warden Peterson. Resolved the motion to adjourn council meeting of December 11th, 2024 be extended to 2:30 p.m.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Having adopted the agenda, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Not seeing any. Adoption of the council minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, moved myself, second by Councillor Palmer. Resolved that the minutes of special council meeting held November 25th, 2024 be adopted.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Palmer.
Moved by myself, seconded Councillor Petrie. Resolved that the council minutes of November 27, 2024 be adopted.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. No public meetings, no delegations, presentations, and therefore no consideration thereof. Consideration of correspondence. Councillor Accione.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Schaefer. Resolved that correspondence item 7.1 on the open meeting agenda of December 11, 2024 be received.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Schaefer.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Accione. Resolved the correspondence item 7.2 on the open meeting agenda of December 11th, 2024 be received and referred to 2025 budget and business plan deliberations.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And reports from departments. 8.1 Public Works, 8.1.1 PW 2024-44 Contract Award Curbside Waste Collection and Organics Processing. Manager Gross, I will turn it over to you for your presentation to council, and then I will ask them for questions.
Thank you, Warden. Good morning. The report today is seeking council approval to award the next 7-year curbside collection contract that would start in 2027. Part of that award requires selection of one of the 6 collection scenarios that were included in the RFP along with some optional collection items. Those scenarios were developed based on the collection options that were presented to council back in May, earlier this year. Staff's recommending county-wide organics collection using a 6-day collection cycle, as well as a 2-bag limit as one of the optional collection items. We're proposing the 2-bag limit as a way to encourage or promote use of the organics program. And we're also proposing to start the organics collection 1 year earlier in Woodstock in 2026, since they'll have available resources as a result of the elimination of the municipal blue box program. Also seeking council authorization to award organics processing to Generate Upcycle, formerly Stormfisher. They're located in Blandford Blenheim, and that award is based on a unit pricing that was negotiated with them. The collection of non-eligible sourced recycling material is also part of the contract award, but it will also include contract amendments to the current contract, so we're deferring that decision at this time, and we'll bring a report to council in Q1 of 2025 for further consideration. And that report is subject to just further negotiations with MTerra regarding amendments to the current contract. And also planning a subsequent report regarding the bag tag program that requires an increase in the bag tag fee starting in 2025 to meet current costs as well as future costs as part of the new collection program. So happy to answer any questions regarding the report, and the Waste Management Supervisor, Pam Antonio, she's also online if need to defer questions to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from Councillor Petrie?
Thank you, Warren, through you. Just looking at the recommendations, just so I'm clear on this, the current recommendations contain the base bid pricing, so it's all based off number 5, the scenario. For number 5, that includes the base bid pricing plus SSO processing and transportation costs and the bins. Does it include any of the other 2 provisional items, or is that a decision that we would have to? So if we pass this recommendation as is, what does that include off the chart that we were given?
Thank you, through you, Warden. The pricing that we're showing only includes the 2-bag limit as the optional collection item, so it does not include automated collection, green fleet, and does not include the non-eligible source recycling at this time.
If I could just follow up on that, we are going to get a separate report on the non-eligible source contract for 2020. We were asked to make that decision today on 2027 to 2034 about non-eligible sources, and we'll have the 2026 to 27 come back later. Is that the correct interpretation?
Through the Warden, no, we're suggesting to defer the decision on the non-eligible sourced recycling collection as part of the new contract until we negotiate further with MTerra regarding the current contract, because those 2 are tied in together.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Gilvesi and Councillor Schaefer, your microphone's on.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. What's the current price, the current contract that we have for the waste collection that we do now?
Through the Warden, I believe the 2025 budget amount for garbage and recycling is approximately $5 million, and I'll ask Manager of Finance to confirm that. 5.5 million. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Warden. So this is almost double of what we're paying now, and then the bag tags are going up in price. In the past, the argument for bag tags has always been that it's been a user pay system, and I understand the rationale behind limiting the 2 bags, but what type of message does that send to the community when we've been saying, oh, it's a user pay system? If you use 4 bags, you're paying $8. If you use 1, you're paying 2. But now that we're going to restrict everyone, that argument is kind of gone. So I'm not sure how families will be able to cope with potentially only 2 bags. But so what's the argument for retaining bag tags? And what would be, if we remove bag tags, how much more would that add to our taxes?
Through the Warden, again, as you said, the bag tag program is intended to be a user-face system, but the 2-bag limit is more about promoting use of the green bin program. So, as well as other recycling programs. In the audit that we completed, I believe it was in 2022, showed that there was still recyclable materials, yard waste, and food waste, obviously, material that can be diverted from the black bag. So trying to promote those waste diversion programs.
And through you, Warden, and the proposed price of the bag tag, I guess the break-even price is $2.39. Would bag tags be $2.50? Is this what we're looking at?
Through the Warden, so the bag tag break-even point is basically net zero, so it doesn't include any additional amount to maintain the target reserve balance that currently is set at it's 40% of the annual bag tag revenue. So that what we're showing here is the break-even point does not include maintaining that target reserve balance.
Through you, Warden. But what would be the actual cost of the bag tag in 2025?
Thank you. Through the warden, our plan is to bring back that report with more detail on the bag tag program with options then for council's consideration, and would include a suggested bag tag fee based on the current and the future collection program.
Thank you.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Through you, Warden, to Mr. Gross. A couple of questions, if I may. First question would be the bag tags. If this was successful and only 2 bags were allowed, how does that work in an urban center where you could have up to 2 residential residences as well on one stop, let's call that? So would, first off, is it proposed only 2 at that one house, no matter how many people or residences you have there? Or is this 2 per residence, would be the first part of the question.
Through the warden, yeah, it would be 2 per resident. So some challenges maybe where, in those cases where it might be difficult to know who set the bags out.
So just 2 per household then, like 2 per stop? Is that what you're, no?
Correct. 2 per resident, per residence.
Residences as apartments though as well, like individual apartments. Now we're seeing a lot of apartments in an R1 zone.
That's correct.
So an apartment that has 3 different families living in it would be allowed 6 bags, or they're still only allowed 2 bags at that one stop?
Through the warden, to help for some clarification there, I think what Manager Gross is indicating is, so for example, if it was a residential unit with 2 ARUs, that would be considered 3 residential units, so therefore 2 bags per residential unit, so 6 for that site.
Okay. All right, and follow on, because that's what I assumed it would be. I would hope that at least. What if there's 7 bags at that, or 8 bags? Who would then have to, I guess, enforce the bag limits at that point?
Through the warden, I believe then the collectors would only collect the maximum number of bags. So in that example, 6 bags, and the bags would be left behind. And yeah, it would be for the residents to sort out.
To figure out whose bags was left and not? There's my biggest concern. I think we're adding an undue burden, especially when we have a pay system that anybody putting the bag out, it's bad enough already if people don't put bag tags on theirs to figure out who it is, especially in some downtown areas, let alone now trying to control how many each household puts out. So I do have some concerns that way. And my next question, if I can continue, Warden, thank you, is in the city of Woodstock, of course, there's James Street Depot. Does any of these affect the depot setup currently? Any scenarios that are being suggested?
Through the warden, no, it wouldn't impact the Enviro Depot on James Street.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Warden Peterson.
Thank you, Warden. Yeah, just to kind of comment further on his too, I look at it as...
comment or a question?
It's going to be a question.
Okay.
Okay, it'll be a comment question. How's that? When I look at the same thing, what he's saying, if there's 3 units there, and say the first two people put out 3 bags each, and one guy comes along and in his unit puts out 1 bag each, and say the garbage people leave that 1 bag that the guy actually is legal, same thing. How are they going to deal with that issue? Because the same thing is, if it's the same garbage guys every day at that household, they may get used to that scenario, but it's a different person all the time. So I'm kind of curious, how would they deal with that issue? Same kind of issue I see.
Through the warden, yeah, I believe that would be a customer service issue. Again, I'm sure then we would hear from those residents, and something we would have to address with them.
Yeah, I know.
And the collectors.
Thank you. I know who would hear from them for sure. The other thing is just to talk about the green bin. If we decided to pick an option where it was an urban only green bin. So, for example, would that cost only be towards the urban centers that would pay for that green bin costing and not all the taxpayers in Oxford County, or how would that work?
Through the warden, we've based our financial analysis that it would be a county-wide funded program, regardless if it was county-wide or just in the three urbans.
Yeah, and that's where I know for me, as a rural person.
Comment or question?
I'll hold it for after then, okay?
I'm going to, as you can tell, I'm going to be a little bit more strict on this because it's going to be a complex debate, and I don't want us to go off, needle scratch sound. Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you. This is a question. Just to be clear, under SSO, diapers are not included, pet waste is not included, any other personal products not included? Isn't that, have I got that right?
Through the warden, yes, diapers, pet waste, and yard waste is excluded from the green bin program.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warren. Through you. In doing some research, I noticed that Waterloo region is switching over to automated cart collection. And in the article there, both there and Peel, they also use Emterra. And they were given they're going to have compressed natural gas vehicles. Do you know the reasoning why that wasn't an option presented under the Green Fleet to Oxford County?
Through the warden, no, I don't know why that option wasn't presented to us. We did ask for proponents to submit Green Fleet options as provisional items. So Emterra submitted a option that would use renewable diesel fuel.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Warden Peters.
I figured out a question for you. This might be a finance question as part of this. So if we decide to do the urban only, if that option is on the table, I know personally for me as a rural, I don't feel comfortable with paying part of that whole service in the urban center, and I'm sure my taxpayers won't either. Is there a way that finance can bill that to the urban centers only for that green program? That's my question.
Through the warden, I'll defer that to corporate services.
Thank you. Through the warden and members of council. Yes, in fact, it can be done through area rating. We might be able to do it through a service agreement if it's just certain areas, something to that effect, but we can definitely do that.
Follow-up question for me then. If in the proposal that's in front of us, it's proposed that Woodstock would go a year earlier on the organics because they're, as the current collector service provider, they're ready to go early. So there would be, I think it's clear in the report that there is incremental cost to go a year early, purchasing the bins a year earlier than that. Does the current recommendation include some kind of area rating for that incremental cost of residents of Woodstock getting that service early, being billed to residents of Woodstock who get that service, or does that current recommendation not do that?
Sorry, I'll take that one, Warden, for you. So the current does not have that. It's the costing for that, on a couple notes on your point there. The bins themselves are meant to be purchased at one time, so they're a one-time cost. That's coming out of the reserve, so there's no area rating on that. It's also intended to then do the whole system in that one purchase. So for the bins themselves, it would be if a county-wide program would be done all at once. As far as the incremental cost for the year early, that has not been costed that way. The costs are there. We have not applied it because it's not 2025 budget impact. We've not made any determination about how that those fees would be collected or distributed. And as Director Bugner said, if the desire was to have a area-specific rating for that, it could be done for the 2026 budget.
Just to follow up then, so that area-specific rating would be similar to the way County Council does a similar thing for library levy and courthouse levy. So we have the ability to do it. We've done it before. Okay, thank you. Yep. Any other questions on the report? Councillor Paul.
Yeah. So in my township, the village of Norwich is fully serviced. I acknowledge that many of the homes that are there have been there a long time on our larger lots, but over the next 10 years, we expect to see substantial growth in residential, and it will be sized based to current provincial regulations. I think my people will feel left out if they don't have green bin collection.
So it's, I think we're ending questions here, it seems like, or Councillor Mayberry will give it another go at a question.
For information, do we know what the average weight of organic material picked up at the average residential would be over a period of a year? I'm just thinking about whether we go mechanical or manual. One of the concerns is how much impact does that have on the person picking it up? And if we knew, are we talking about 10 pounds, or are we talking about 150 pounds? Obviously not 150, but do we have a kind of statistic out there that says the average household puts out X pounds of, or kilos of organic matter a year, or a month, week, whatever?
Through the warden, I'll maybe defer that question to the Waste Management Supervisor, Pam, if she's online.
Yes, thank you to the warden and council. We are through manual collection. You would use a 42-liter collection source separated organics bin. That bin is used among municipalities across Ontario for manual collection. So weight will vary depending on the size of the families. So what we do know is that generally the weight of that bin with the organics material doesn't exceed 20 kilograms, which is, I believe, close to 44 pounds, which is our requirement for our garbage collection.
I think I just heard Ms. Antonio say 20 kilograms per week.
That's correct.
Per set out. I don't have what an industry standard is on a per weekly basis as far as what communities are putting out on a weekly basis.
I would just ask because I did a study at our place a year ago, and we put out about 2 kilograms a week, and I think we're pretty diligent. And I don't mean put out; we put into the green cone about 2 kilograms per week, and I think we're pretty diligent. So I'm guessing that 20 sounds extremely high, unless you have a very, very large family.
Any other, Councillor Schaefer? I'm going to assume that this is a question.
It is. Okay. Question for you, Mr. Gross. With the 6-day cycle and green bin, what is the maximum worst scenario of time that your green bin would be not picked up? No, this would be like with holidays and stuff like that would cause that. But what would be the outside time period, worst case, to have your green bin not picked up? Follow me?
Through the warden, so every fifth week there would be a 10-day gap between pickups. Although at Christmas that may be a bit longer, and I'll defer to Pam for that.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Typically during Christmas season, depending on where your collection falls in the cycle, the maximum you would go is around 12 days during the Christmas season.
Councillor Petrie.
I have two final questions. One is, when is the absolute limit to make a decision on this, time-wise?
Through the warden, the pricing is valid for 120 days from closing, so that would put us at January 20th. So we would need a council resolution for contract award prior to that date.
Okay. And the second question I have is that the current pricing that we have here for SSO, the bins anyway, is for manual collection only. If it was automated, does that still follow within the same line, or would that change?
through the warden. So we're showing under the automated collection option the cart cost, so that includes larger green bins
Okay,
and garbage carts.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Question for me, so the different bins would be the only incremental cost to go with automated versus non-automated?
Yeah, so there's actually a impact to the collection cost, as well as the one-time purchase of the carts.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Warden Ryan. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gilvazy. Resolved that recommendations contained in report PW 2024-44 titled Contract Award Curbside Waste Collections and Organics Processing be adopted with the exception of recommendation number 3 regarding 2-bag limits. I'm prepared to speak to that.
Councillor Martin is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you. I do. We pass a lot of really important motions here, and across our 4-year term, this is probably the most important one for me personally. I came at this not just as an analysis of cost, but what would be best for the residents of all of Oxford. And what would be the system that would encourage the greatest uptake of usage so that we can divert the most waste from our landfill. So I have put forward scenario number 5 that was recommended. Without the 2-bag limit, I think it is probably one of the most contentious issues within scenario number 5. We've had questions about this. Questions about what happens when there's, a duplex or a triplex and how many bags get put out. What are the size of the bags? Is it a 90-liter bag? Is it a 150-liter bag? Is it a, you could upsize these bags to the point that it's still a 2-bag limit, but people are hauling out enormous bags to the curb. People who have, my neighbors across the street have 3 kids under the age of 3, and the amount of diapers that they have. You might have a parent with incontinence. To set a 2-bag limit for me creates a barrier that could reduce the uptake in the program, even though it is intended to increase the uptake in the program. And so I've read the motion to exclude that recommendation. I think I'm the only member of council that has lived somewhere with green bin collection, I think. So while my personal preference isn't scenario number 5, I have a preference personally. I have put this forward as potentially the best option for all of Oxford. And so I look forward to the debate that's been put on the floor.
Councillor Gilvazy is the seconder. Do you wish to speak to that?
I'm going to reserve any comments for now. Thank you.
Discussion. Councillor Petrie.
Is there a motion there, or were there further questions? I was distracted. I just needed clarification. Okay.
Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And if I'm going to go a little old school here and stand up to speak, because I think this is a monumental thing and it deserves what used to happen in the chamber. So I can support everything on this motion here today, but what I can't support is not the inclusion of automated pickup. And there's a variety of reasons for this. This is a monumental multi-council decision that's going to take place here today. It's going to affect our residents for the next 10 years. It's going to affect multiple councils. And we need to, and I think that everybody in the room is cognizant of that as we make this decision here today. When I first read this, I thought the automated carts are going to be too expensive. This is not going to be an option that's going to be available for us. But when we look at the math, the cost between automated and non-automated is $38,000, excluding the capital costs, which actually just got cheaper today from what I thought they were. So that's a 1.7% difference. Now, if we take into consideration also that the current cost, there's $42,000 for bag tags that have to be printed, shipped, bad debt. That cost, that $42,000 does not include staff time for auditing and the financial side of thing, reconciliation, that sort of thing, customer service. So that brings the cost difference down to $96,000 because with a bin system, you don't need a bag tag system. You can bill, you can be yearly as our friends in Strathroy Caradoc do. They have multiple size bins that range from $150 a year, sorry, $139 a year, all the way up to $336 a year for a large one. So you still have a choice in what you have as far as your garbage size. And the more, they don't do source separated organics. So my guess is that if people are participating heavily in that, that will give them the option to go down to a smaller bin. I don't know about you, but there's always those mornings when I have to go out in the morning and try to find a garbage bag tag store that's open because I've run out. And every time you purchase those garbage bag tags, you get a reminder of this is how much it costs, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing for our residents. And it's something that's, with automated system, does not have to happen. You wheel your cart out and you put your garbage out every day or every changing day with 6-day cycle, and you're able to make sure that you're able to participate in that, and you get one bill a year. And I've talked to multiple people who use this system, and I asked, so what do you pay a year? And they go, I don't know. I don't know because it just comes on my bill and it's part of the system that we use. So to go back to the cost and why we should also do this, health and safety is a huge thing. I couldn't find a lot of stats in the, sorry, gentlemen, sorry. This is important. So I couldn't find a lot of stats in Canada, but the garbage collection is the top 5 dangerous job in the US. The injury rates are very high due to the fact that you're picking up large waste. We've talked about weight scenarios. It should be about 7 kilograms. Ours is about 20. That repetitive thing, you can lift up to 13 tons a day doing this job. This morning when I got here early, I looked out and the City of Woodstock, the collection workers were there. They have a driver and they have a gentleman at the back of the truck. And again, picking up 2 bags and hauling them in. I'm sure the City of Woodstock and our contractors, those WSIB costs, those injury rates are higher than other departments because of this. Not only that, they're out in weather that is, right now it's snowing out, slips, falls, out into traffic. There's also the health and safety part of having been exposed. This was brought out in the pandemic very strongly to sharps. It's not only just garbage and biohazards, but it's also sharps to being cut with glass and other things. Automated carts gets rid of that 100%. You now have a much better work environment, and you have better retention, employee rates, and people able to stay in the workforce longer. This is a very physical job. And Waterloo Region, to the west of us, is switching over in March of 2026 to this. And they use Emterra as well. And in a CTV News article, Emterra gave a quote as to why it's important for this, and so I will read that quote now. We are moving as an industry away from manual labor and bags because there simply isn't the workforce out there who is willing to do that type of work now that we have the cart system and automated cart system. So do we want to be 10 years down the road before we adopt this and not be able to, our contractor not to be able to have a steady workforce, and those people who are in their system wanting to go to other towns that have this system? The cost is there. It is minuscule. It is less than a percentage point once you factor in the savings that we have there. We can have a higher level of service. We can have better employees for the town and the city and the township of having a better work environment, and not only that, our contractors can as well. So I can't support the motion as it is. I'd be happy to have an amendment to it, but I'd like to hear from others if that'd be something they'd be willing to look at. But at the end of the day, now, the cost that is larger is the capital cost for the bins, but I thought it was $3.7 million. But it's $3.7 million, but we're paying 16, so the difference is $2 million. And it is not on the tax rate. These are capital costs that would come from reserves to cover this, and then you can factor that into the rates to try to recoup that over time to make sure that capital contribution is there. So really what we're facing is a $96,000 difference per year to do this, to do automated cart collection. Our strategic plan talks about being innovative and being being leaders, and I think this is one way that we can clearly do that. Strathroy Caradoc has been doing it for over 10 years. The first automated collection took place in Phoenix in 1970. Toronto's been doing it for decades. Oxford County deserves the same, our residents deserve the same level of service as these other areas, and I think this is a reasonable opportunity to provide that, as well as have a higher level of health and safety and limit our risks on that side of, for the workers who are doing this, and give them a better life as well, and attract more people to a field that where they can participate, where it doesn't matter your gender right now, you do have to have be able to physically do this job, and that's limiting people's time in the job and the ability to pay, apply for it. So I'll rest my case there, but that's why I can't support the motion, but I'd be happy to put an amendment on afterwards.
Deputy Warden Peterson.
Thank you, Warden. Yeah, just maybe to follow up a little bit on that. I know when you say it doesn't come from the levy, but even if it comes from the reserves, it comes from the levy sometimes. So if we're going to replace it, it's going to come from the levy anyway. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying any way we look at it, it's going to come from the levy somewhere. So probably a mistake, but I posted on social media sometime last night. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and got thinking about the garbage thing. So I put a post at 2 o'clock in the morning on social media. Maybe it been a mistake in hindsight, but I asked the question about green bins and about 6-day cycle, what the costing possibly would be, everything. So when I started reading them this morning, my phone was blowing up. And just on one site in Plattsville, the first 26 I read, 23 were no for green bins and 3 were in favor. When I started looking at all the other sites, I did all the small rurals, they all have their own little site, the same thing was coming nonstop. I personally was in favor of green bins when I went to bed. After I'm reading all this, and then my phone on the way here had 5 farmers call me on the way here and said, why are you putting green bin in what they call the rural, not the Drumbo, the Princeton, in the rural area where the farmers are? Because they said, we won't use it. We either put it in the field, but most of them said they put it in their manure pit. So it was just kind of a waste of cost. So in saying that, that's why I won't support option 5, because my residents are saying they're not going to use the green bin. I get the concept behind it. The concept is reduce what goes into the landfill. But if they're not going to use it, then it's a cost that I'm not sure I'm willing to put out there. So just kind of a comment. I know maybe all of us won't agree with that, but that's what came from my residents on in a matter of about 6 hours. So thank you.
Councillor Gilvazy.
Thank you, Warden. I won't be supporting it either. I have a community with a large number of seniors, close to 30%, which is much above the provincial average. The 6-day cycle is extremely confusing. I think it is hard to justify to citizens that your bag tags are going up. This cost of the service is doubling. And then you're going to be, well, I know the limit was taken out, but, and then you're moving to a 6-day cycle. So you're getting less service than you potentially have now. I don't think it's sellable to the public to increase it by double. I do think that there is some merit in looking at automation. I've seen the system work when I've been away on vacation, so I think that there's some merit. I think this is a big decision. I don't think we should also rush into it. Quite frankly, I'd like to see a status quo for another year so we can work everything out, or at the very least, if we're going to move forward with Woodstock, that Woodstock be a pilot project. I am concerned. I have talked to people that have had these bins. Tillsonburg in particular has a lot of ravines everywhere. We have a lot of rodents. We have a lot of raccoons. And as much as they may have a lock on them or are tight, rodents will get into them, especially raccoons. They're very adept. I've seen them open fridges and freezers at the lake before. They can get into them. So I think I don't want to rush into this, and I certainly don't support a 6-day pickup cycle. And I think that there is some merit into investigating the automation further. Thank you.
Councillor Petrie.
I'd like to move an amendment. I've just sent it to the clerk as well. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Palmer, that the motion be amended to include automated cart collection as part of the contract.
And you said you had a seconder, sorry?
Councillor Palmer.
Councillor Palmer. As the mover of the amendment, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
I think I've spoken enough. The only thing I will do is respond to the notion of animals. Bags are much more easily.
Sorry, not relevant to the amendment on the floor.
Okay.
Councillor Palmer is the seconder of the amendment. Do you wish to speak to it? Does anybody else wish to speak to the amendment to, I can't remember the exact wording, but to include automated collection? Anybody? Councillor Schaefer.
Thank you, Warden, through you. Do we have a full costing on that option with the carts and the trucks? Okay. All right.
Want to get Councillor Schaefer's answer.
I think it's in the report, Warden, apparently, so I'll find it. Yep. So I'm good.
Then I'm going to ask the question because I can't remember where it is in the report. So
Okay.
I would like to hear an answer to Councillor Schaefer's question.
Thank you, through the warden. I believe Manager of Finance can add that cost, so we just need to toggle it as a yes in our spreadsheet there. But we'll take a minute here. So you can see the costs in the attachment, but it doesn't.
Councillors are saying they can't hear you. Can you double check that microphone is on? Yeah.
Sorry.
It's kind of quiet though, right? Oh, it is what it is now.
Thank you. I was just saying the costs are shown in the attachment, but don't factor into the total. But Carolyn's working on that. So did you turn the two bag off then? Because that wouldn't apply then, right?
So we're at 13.
So 13 with all in your fund.
There's your base price.
The base 7, right? Okay. Through the warden, so adding automated collection to scenario 5, that would mean then the two bag limit is not included then. So that would result in a total cost of 13.1 million. That includes the cart procurement, but that's a base bid or an annual price of 7.7 million.
And sorry, and that's a 6-day schedule?
Correct. That's based on scenario 5, the 6-day collection.
Okay, a 5-day schedule would be, if you've got it there?
5 days. So scenario 3, the 5-day with bi-weekly garbage.
No, option 1 with cards. I
So
guess. I
option
can
1.
find it here probably, but.
Through the warden, option 1 then would be 14.6 million
Okay,
total with a base bid of 9.1 million,
okay, thank
or
you,
base cost.
thank you.
Councillor Accione, and then I think it was Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Through you to Mr. Gross, actually, before you sit down again, sorry. Southwest Oxford and Woodstock are proposing to continue collections. If automated, this is to the automated talk, the trucks they have currently then, I'm assuming, could be retrofitted, but to what cost, and then how does that get paid for?
Through the warden, yes, we believe the existing trucks could be retrofitted with the lifting device. And then the cost then, I guess, would factor in to overall collection costs that would be recovered over time.
So if I could continue, I'm assuming that's not included in the numbers we were just told? That would be over and above the 13.1 million or 14.6 million?
Through the warden, correct. Those numbers are based on MTerra's bid submission, which included collection in Woodstock and Southwest Oxford as provisional collection areas. So we're using that as our capped pricing, I guess, if you will.
Okay, and if I can continue on the same kind of thoughts, if MTerra didn't submit tendering prices for the automated, or they did? I guess I'm a little confused now.
Through the warden, so the automated collection was included as a provisional collection option. So the numbers you're seeing in the report are in addition to their base bid pricing.
Was, okay, thank you.
So follow up from me then on that. So the numbers that we just got on the cost of automated collection includes the cost for Woodstock and Southwest Oxford to upgrade based on the cost that Emterra suggested for automated collection. Is that correct?
It doesn't include the cost for Woodstock and Southwest Oxford to retrofit their existing trucks.
Sorry, and maybe to add some extra to that one. So the bid cost is used as the upset limit for the contracted providers through the area municipalities. So they would have to upgrade their equipment to be able to perform the task within that contracted bid amount. So each of those, as the area municipal contractors, would have to basically upgrade their equipment on their cost and then recover it through the billing within the current pricing system.
So Oxford County would not be on the hook for the upgrade cost. The contracted service provider would have to provide the service within the upset limit at whatever their cost is to do that. Thank you. I'm assuming you want to follow up on that, then Councillor Gilvazy, then Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you. To continue on the same wavelength there. Well, then I've got to ask, was this discussed with Southwest Oxford and Woodstock? I know you've had some great conversations and throughout the last few weeks. Was that something those two services could do, or would this change, in your opinion, the way they would look at these contracts with these added costs?
Through the warden, yeah, we did have conversations with staff from Woodstock and Southwest Oxford, and we believe that it's a viable option to go with automated collection. Although we didn't include it in our recommendation because we felt it was cost prohibitive based on the one-time cost for procurement, for cart procurement.
Definitely expensive. Thank you.
Councillor Gilvazy, then Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you, through you, Warden. So scenario 2, which is the 5-day weekly urban only, what costs would we be looking at to automate? And yeah, it is regards to the motion.
8.7 or 8.8. Yeah. Through the warden, so scenario 2, using automated collection, the total would be 13.3 million. But that's a one-time cost of 8.8 million approximately.
Base.
Sorry?
Base.
The base
Is 8.8.
8.8 million.
Is it possible to get what you're looking at on that screen, up on that screen for council to see?
Can you email this?
Is it in the report?
I can join the meeting.
Okay.
It's in the spreadsheet. They're just
Yeah. Yes, but I think I think a couple councillors have sort of indicated that I think it would help them to follow the math if they could see the numbers, if we could get that on there. Do we need to take a break to make that happen, or? Let's take 5 minutes.
I have a follow-up.
I got a printout. You good to go? 10:31, I'll call the meeting back to order, and we are still on item 8.1.1, curbside waste collection. And I think where we left off was in the middle of an answer from staff to I can't remember whose question it was. So I'll turn it back over to staff to finish that. And then after that, Councillor Gavesi had a follow-up.
Thank you, through the warden. We provided a hard copy of the financial details that includes automated collection for all 6 scenarios, and also showing now on the screen that same spreadsheet. So we're able to toggle on or off any of those optional collection items there.
Councillor, I think it was it in response? Councillor Gilvesi.
Thank you, through you, Warden. Okay, this is helpful. Essentially, like the investment for automation is pretty consistent almost across the board, but with scenario 1 being the most expensive. So with scenario 2, the base, that means the yearly cost then would be 8.784 million throughout the remainder of the contract. I'm just clarifying that.
Through the warden, yes, that's correct. That's actually year 1 pricing, and each year is subject to CPI adjustment.
I think earlier I had said Councillor Mayberry was next, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and then Councillor Martin.
Okay, thank you. Changing the subject slightly, the scenario, oh, right, we're doing the amendment. I apologize. I'll come back.
Councillor Petrie.
So just for clarity, on the new information, or just the reorganized information that's on here, scenario 5 is the cheapest solution with automated collection. Is that the correct interpretation? It's 7.7 million versus for base costs, 7.7 versus all the way up to 9 million.
Through the warden, scenario 5 is the lowest cost option that includes county-wide organics collection.
Sorry, there's other ones that are, just for clarification, there's others, I'm not seeing any, this is coming at 7.7, but even without, in the rural, with no rural collection, scenario 2 or 4. Oh, there's one more, okay, sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Accioni. Councillor Accioni.
Okay, through you, Warden, thank you to Mr. Gross. For clarification purposes, if an automated system were introduced and voted on, is there any more bag tags then? Does that eliminate bag tags completely? Cost to residents and cost for us to print them?
Through the warden, using automated collection then would require a different user fee if that was council's direction to implement a user fee. It would be something more along the lines of an annual fee then.
That's, yeah, I guess. Maybe.
Through you, Warden, just some clarification there as well. So unless a different source funding was established based on the bin charge instead, these scenarios do not include the loss of revenue from the bag tag system that currently is being recommended or is currently in place. So the cost of the automation is just on the contract costs related to that, and then we would have to sort out the loss of revenue from not having bag tags and how council would like to deal with that separately. So, but obviously the automated carts would likely eliminate the bag tag process.
So just to follow up that and clarify, that would be a subsequent decision of council as to how to replace the lost revenue of bag tags, and it would be up to a decision of council advised by staff or whatever.
That's correct.
Okay, Councillor Accioni had a follow-up.
Thank you. Continue along that, then, do we know currently what that number is that county brings in on bag tanks? I have seen it, so I know it's in there somewhere. I just don't have it handy, sorry.
It's 1.8 million, right? Sorry? For bag tag revenue. Through the warden, the bag tag revenue is 3.7 million, and that's 2025 budget.
So, if I may, yeah, so then there must be some kind of significant user fee. There's no way we could probably eliminate that and add another $3.7 million to the levy. That would be crazy. So,
Through your warden, that would be council's decision.
yeah, of course. Thank you.
Councillor Beach.
So just to clarify, the current bag tag pricing structure does not cover the cost. We are using reserves to fund the difference in that current situation. So it's always been the thing to look at the pricing of bag tags at a subsequent meeting, regardless of the decision coming out of this, to make sure that upfall, correct? To make it more, because it's supposed to be a user pay system where the cost of the tags would cover the cost of this service. It's currently not doing that, but there's reserves to cover that. But those are running out. It's in a negative scenario. So that is why we're going to have to face, if we keep bag tags or not, we're going to have to change the amount that we charge either per bag or per year or whatever to cover to make this a true user pay system rather than rely on levy, correct?
Councillor Mayberry.
Through the warden, that's correct.
Councillor Mayberry.
I'm failing to see how the cost of bag tags and the surplus or lack of surplus in the bag tag has anything to do with the amendment on the floor.
Yeah, I was wondering as well, but it is relevant in that if we switch to the automated system, there would not be a need for bag tags. So the switch to automated affects the funding lost by not having bag tags.
If I may, the motion says nothing about how it's funded. It says we should go to a different system.
Correct, but my ruling is that I think it's a valid concern for council to talk about how is it funded as a result of that. That's my ruling anyway. Any other questions? Councillor Atchison.
Yeah, thank you. To that comment, we got to look to replace $3.7 million, basically, which would add to these costs we're being discussed right now, is my only thought, without getting into things further.
Any other discussion on the, Councillor Beach?
Sorry, I just needed clarification on that comment from Councillor Accioni. The cost to do the program now is 5.4 million or 5.5 million. It would change to this cost. If we keep bag tags or not, we would need to up the revenue coming in, assuming by raising bag tag prices or raising another source of revenue. So it doesn't add to this number, it's paying for this number. Is that what the comment was?
If I can reply to that, Warren, thank you. No, not necessarily here at this table, but it will be for residents at home. They're going to be paying more, I suspect, with the added cost. If the 3.7 isn't covering the cost right now, and we're looking to look at increased costs for bag tags or new services, the resident is certainly going to have to pay.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. So just for a point of clarification, the amendment that is on the floor is to include automated cart collection as part of the contract. We are dealing with, as the larger motion, scenario 5. So the amendment, we are voting on the difference between $9.189 million total cost and what was just put up here as 13.17. That's what we're voting on as a part of the amendment. That's my question as a point of clarification.
I think with the proviso that how each one of the 10 of us imagines that gap being filled is a future decision of council. So I don't want to imply that gap, which I think I agree that's my understanding of the gap, would automatically go on levy or bag tags or any other scenario. That would be a subsequent decision of council. But I think that is accurate that is the gap. Correct? Any other discussion on the amendment? I'm going to ask the clerk then for clarification to read the amendment only, and then we'll be voting on the amendment only.
Thank you, Warden. That
Sorry,
the-
Councillor Petrie. Sorry, Lindsay.
As we only get to vote on things once, I just want to make sure that my colleagues feel they have enough clarity on it to vote on it, or would they like, I would entertain to deferral, if not, to gain more information. Just from the fact that you can't go back, and I'd rather be, from a point of clarity, just everybody be on the same page and comfortable with a motion. I put it on the table. 100% okay if it gets deferred, and then we have time to talk about the difference.
Deputy Warden Peterson, Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Warden. Just for point of clarity as well, because we're not, I know it's being added to scenario 5 that's being, but if we're just voting on this amendment and say we go to scenario 1, I'm just using that for example, if this amendment, can this amendment be put on scenario 1?
So procedurally, my ruling would be that in order for that to happen, the amendment on the floor, or the motion on the floor, the original motion from Councillor Martin, would have to be defeated, and then a subsequent motion would come forward, and then a similar amendment to this would be in order for that motion, because the amendment that's on the floor right now is with respect to the motion that's on the floor. So in my ruling, it would not be reconsideration to bring forward the same amendment again with respect to a separate motion. I don't know if that, is that?
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm not sure whether this is going to go or not, and I just wanted to leave that option open later.
That would be my opinion. Councillor Accioni and then Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you. I'm wondering if I could make a motion to defer, if that would be able to, because I don't want to say that I'm opposed to the automation. I'm potentially interested in looking at it. I haven't got it through my head yet, and some city staff have some questions as well on the exact costs and everything else. And I would hate to see this not, as Councillor Petrie has mentioned, unable to bring it back if it's defeated right now.
Do you have a seconder to defer? Councillor Gilvesi? I'm just thinking procedurally here now.
Yeah, I'm a little yeah.
Give me 2 seconds.
An amendment to the motion on the floor? Would that be an amendment to your motion?
I just want to make sure.
Because again.
No, it would be. Yeah, it's not an amendment.
Yeah.
If we have to deal with the motions on the floor.
Yeah.
And they're defeated, then it would be reconsideration, even if a deferral. So I think you have to defer it before voting on these, or else they wouldn't be able to come back on the floor and be re-voted on.
Well, the thing is, what I don't understand is how do you defer the, you know what I 10:56. I'll call the meeting back to order, and there is a Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Gilvezzi, that the amendment in relation to item number 8.11 be deferred until the January 8, 2025 meeting.
Okay, so just before I ask Councillor Accioni to speak to that motion, I want to procedurally be clear for council. My ruling on this, which is of course, up to all of you to challenge the ruling of the chair if you want, is that the amendment, the motion to defer the amendment is in order, but I think would functionally then defer the original motion, because the original motion has a hanging amendment that would mean that council could not ultimately decide on it. So while we're not deciding right now on deferring the motion, I think that functionally deferring the amendment does defer the original motion. So I just want to procedurally make that clear to council, and then I'm going to ask Councillor Accioni to speak to his motion to defer.
Thank you, Warden. Through you. Yeah, this deferral is to allow not only us as councillors time, but us to speak with staff, city staff, Southwest Oxford, Woodstock staff, to ensure that, again, automated. I'm not opposed to automated. I've just got way too many more questions to confidently vote on this motion as it sits right now. So I'd like to investigate this a little further and ask for staff's patience while we ask a bunch of questions of them over the next couple of weeks.
Councillor Gilvezzi is the seconder.
I concur with that too. I feel like we're like a little against a brick wall here trying to make all these decisions with, and I think that we need to do some more investigative research. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the deferral? Councillor Mabel.
I can't support a deferral. I think that we've had the information. I realize that there's some information that people are struggling with, but we've had the information, and we actually are charged by the people of Oxford County to make decisions.
Anybody else wish to speak to the deferral? So likewise, I will not be supporting the motion to defer. I think we have the information in front of us. I think that moving to January 8th, I have very little confidence that between now and January 8th, Oxford County staff and/or MTerra and/or City Woodstock and/or SWOC staff are going to bring us forward anything that is substantially different than what we already have in front of us. We do have an obligation to make a decision and deliver service where solid waste has to be collected. And I want to be clear that while this isn't until 2026, our staff are going to be working flat out all of 2025 to make this change happen. And we need to make this decision. And also that the pricing that we have from MTerra only lasts until I believe it's January 20th. January 8th and then January 20th, I mean, we're all going to walk out of the room on January 8th and leave that, but our staff then have to work out whatever we decide, and we still haven't decided that. And I also want to remind council that if we defer this because of the automation, we still have to decide whether we're doing the 2-bag limit, whether we're doing option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So deferring this is only going to give time for the 10 of us to talk amongst each other and make a decision. There's, in my opinion, nobody coming over the hill with new information that's going to make it all crystal clear for us and solve this. So for all those reasons, I will not be voting in favor of deferral of the amendment, which would functionally defer the motion and the decision. Anybody else before I call the question? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So then my ruling then will be that there is no vote for council to make on the original motion by Councillor Martin because we have deferred the consideration of the amendment. And so this original motion would functionally be tabled now for consideration at the January 8th meeting. And I would just really remind council, we need to come to January 8th with our homework done, motions, amendments ready to go, and make a decision on January 8th. For reals. Okay? All right. So then, I got to find out where we are now. 8.2.1, CS 2024-47, 2025 Insurance Program. Director Bugner, is there anything you want to highlight for council on that before I ask them for questions?
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Questions from council on the report? Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazy, resolved that the recommendation contained in report CS 2024-47 titled 2025 Insurance Program be adopted.
Is there any discussion? Councillor Mayberry.
I'm just wondering, when are we going out to market again? Is that next year?
Through the warden to Councillor Mayberry, there's no set date in terms of when we go out for market for insurance purposes. We can certainly do that in the new year. Yeah, it kind of depends on what is the climate in the insurance industry, and it's not just within our area, but a lot of our insurance too comes from abroad. So, yeah, we'll take a look at what the insurance sector looks like and see if we feel that we would get more than one application or more than one submission, which was what we experienced the last time. So certainly something we will look at in the new year. I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tate, resolved that the recommendation contained in report CS 2024-48 titled 2025 Borrowing Bylaw be adopted.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And motion to go into thank you. Motion to go into closed. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Petrie, that council rise and go into a closed session to consider report HRCS 2024-06 regarding labor relations or employee negotiations.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? and Councillor Palmer. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 8.2.3 CS 2024-49, 2025 business plans and budget, and I will turn it over to Director Bugner to kick this off, and then I'll have some comments, and then we will get down to the notices of motion, and surely, I think, take a break at some point before we finish that for lunch. Director Bugner.
Okay, thank you, Warden, and just want to go briefly over what has changed since we initially presented the preliminary 2025 business plan and budget package to Council on November the 13th. So we have been tracking any changes that we've received over the course of that few weeks, and we are taking a look now at a revised budget, the adjusted levy being $92.9 million for general purposes. So that's an increase of 12.6%. The percentage has not changed because that was only an incremental decrease within the budget of $33,666. Largely as a result of new information coming in from the conservation authorities, and the Southwest Public Health had passed their budget a week or so ago, and as well as a couple of decisions that Council had made coming out of their closed meeting session on November the 13th. So that information is presented in Table 1 and in the attachment for more detailed information. There has been no change or no adjustments made to the library levy. Similarly, no changes or adjustments to the special court security grant levy. In terms of the capital budget, there has been minor revisions there, about $6 million. They're reflected in that schedule as well, largely due to two projects, one being the Woodingford Lodge new bed development project that was removed by Council, and the other one being a collaborative road and services related project with the town of Tillsonburg that they asked for deferral for, so we were able to pull that out of the 2025 budget. However, no impact on the levy as those ones were funded from other sources. In terms of more detail, we're looking at the notices of motion that are presented in Table 2 that we'll be working through over the next few minutes to arrive at the ultimate levy impact and make a final decision on all of those bullet points or recommendations contained in the report. So without further ado, I'll turn it back to the Warden to entertain any questions from Council and facilitate debate on the motions before Council.
Thank you. So just a reminder to Council, staff are going to be following along as we work our way through the amendments. They will be calculating the impact of everyone if they haven't already, and they'll be populating a table to show us and make it clear to us what those impacts are, and ready to populate the recommendation, the blanks and the recommendation that they've put in front of us. But it is the responsibility of this council to fill in those blanks with staff's support, and put a motion on the floor to adopt some form of budget. Okay? They've prepared the draft budget for us. Now, whatever we adopt today is our budget. So just, I want to remind procedurally for council to think about that as we go through the amendments. Our purpose here is to arrive at filled in blanks that somebody is prepared to move in second. So I think if there's any other procedural questions on that, we'll go ahead. So Councillor Gilvazy, then Councillor Atchison.
I have a question for the report, Warden. Through you, Warden. I have a question regarding the court security and prisoner transportation costs. Are local municipalities then also charged transportation services within those contracts? Like, does this cover everything? I'm a bit confused on that, and I'm looking for clarification, because I believe at the municipal level, we're also charged in our contracts for for prisoner transportation services. So what exactly does this cover from a county perspective?
Through the word to Councillor Gavesi, this only covers the service provided at the county courthouse here in Woodstock. So basically what we do in terms of that calculation is we take their actual costs, so this would be the actual costs that they incurred in 2023. As all area municipalities benefit from. Some of what I said then, or? Got it? Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Did everybody get the answer? Yeah. Councillor Accione.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. I guess the question is, knowing we deferred part of the budget with the garbage, is that going to affect this at all then? Good, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, the waste collection report was for
separate.
2026, not 2025.
Correct.
So
Thank
it does
you.
not impact 2025.
You're right.
In my opinion, does not impact the 2025 budget that that's council considering now.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm going to ask the Deputy Warden to take the chair then for the first notice of motion with respect to the budget.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Warden. Okay, so our first notice of motion is from our Warden, Marcus Ryan, if you want to go ahead and speak to that.
Thank you. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to? I'll do it. I don't remember what it's like now. I'll read it.
Sure, we'll let you read it.
Moved by Ryan, seconded by Gilvesi. Whereas Council passed a resolution at their November 13th, 2024 Council meeting directing staff to take all necessary steps to amend the development charge policy and bylaw at the earliest date to remove the non-statutory exemption related to industrial buildings and will allow for the funding provision for the non-statutory exemption to be removed from the draft 2025 budget. Therefore, be it resolved that the 2025 business plan and budget be amended to remove the funding provision for non-statutory exemptions related to industrial development.
Okay, thank you. As a mover, would you like to speak to that, please?
I would, thank you. I'm not going to speak very long on this because I think I spoke to it at length before in the original motion that preceded this. The only thing I would reiterate is I think the growth that our residents are experiencing, the rate of growth that our residents are experiencing is extreme. Incentivizing industrial growth to a level that I think is not necessarily necessary to have any industrial growth, I think is not productive for our communities, and certainly taxing our residents to incentivize that growth is, I think, not productive right now. I think we need industrial growth. I think we should have industrial growth. I'm not comfortable with taxing our residents in the current scenario of the growth pressures that we have to incentivize that growth, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the seconder. As a seconder, Councillor Gavesi, would you like to speak to that, please?
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Totally concur with what the Warden said. It places undue hardship on the taxpayers to subsidize industry. Industry is extremely important. We should be growing jobs alongside houses, but I think there's other programs like the RED program. I know that there have been multiple businesses in Tillsonburg that have received funding through that. There's also other forms of provincial and federal funding, as well as CIP programs that help incentivize to bring industry to the local region. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Through you, I'm not here to debate the previous motion that Council brought to do the DC exemptions, get away with them, do away with them. To me, this is impact on the budget, and we're saying that we should remove that exemption figure from the budget, or the price to fund those exemption figure from the budget. My issue with that is that under the current DC bylaw is that if a business or an applicant has a site plan approval or a zone change amendment already under approved, there's a 2-year window at which that it freezes the bylaw. And so we are going to see exemptions this year from that. We're going to see them in the next year. There is going to be fees associated with that. Now, traditionally, another way, I don't have a problem with it because we've always just funded those through reserves or whatever, and it'll go back on the taxpayer one way or the other. So there will be exemptions made regardless of the changes that are made because they are grandfathered in. They have, as soon as they receive site plan approval, or they have, and have conferred with the Director of Corporate Services that the exemptions do apply as well. So it is frozen at the current bylaw when those two things take effect, either a site plan approval or a zoning amendment application approval. So we will see those. I think it would be more prudent to budget for those, but again, it's a budget number and the actuals drastic are hard to predict anyway. So, but there will be exemptions made this year. Because I would speculate that the majority of the investments we'll see in the industrial sector are already past that point. But with that, I can support it. I can support it going forward. I just want to make sure everybody knows that that's not going to change the scenario. We're not going to see that much money necessarily not be used for exemptions because there is exemptions that will be allowed to happen.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Through you. I think growth should pay for growth, and I thank the warden for bringing this forward for the simple reason that I think Oxford County has become a destination. It's not the only factor now that brings businesses here to have no DC charges. I think that we've proven that we have a very strong economic driver. Our location here is certainly helping us, and for that reason by itself, I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not saying anything? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And opposed, if any? And that's carried. Thank you. And now, if the warden would like to come back to the chair, I'll give him back.
Thank you, Deputy Warden Peterson. 10.2, Notice of Motion 2, Councillor Gilvazy.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Martin. Resolved that the following grants be approved in 2025. County of Oxford budget in the total amount of $131,500. Oxford Connection, $50,000. Oxford Small Business Center, $50,000. Domestic Abuse Services Oxford, $31,500. Total, $131,500.
Councillor Gilvazy, as the mover, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, Council is aware that we are under a new policy, and I wanted to take this opportunity that I thoroughly enjoyed the process, and I think that the policy is good. And, there's always opportunity to tweak it. I don't see anything that needs to be tweaked at this point. I think that the recommendations for grant money are very important to the community, and they're definitely meeting the criteria. So, thank you.
Councillor Martin as the seconder.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Petrie.
I have to confer with and highlight Councillor Gilvazy's point about we asked for a policy to come back, and it seems to be working exactly the way we asked for it, so I appreciate that work from staff, and I fully support the motion.
Any other discussion? Councillor Mayberry.
So I've asked this question before previous years about is the county into economic development, or is that a lower tier responsibility? And since this is directly, or two of the issues are directly connected to economic development and the county funding it, I'm wondering, are we in the business or not? And if we are, then why don't we just take the whole thing back and do economic development countywide? I'll leave that as a question.
For who?
Probably for the council to consider.
Any other discussion? All is in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 10.3, Notice of Motion 3, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Moved by Martin, seconded by Gilvazy. Resolved that the ground mount solar PV installation capital cost of $2 million associated with the Thornton Wellfield Naturalization Initiative, NI 2025-01, be removed from the 2025 business plan and budget, and that the expenses and revenue associated with the solar PV portion of the initiative be adjusted.
Councillor Martin is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
I do, thank you. So based on new information that I received late yesterday on amortization timelines, as well as some other information, I'm not going to speak for or against the motion, but I'll open it up for council to debate. When I originally put forward the motion, amortization, I was under the impression that it was a 15-year amortization. Turns out that it's actually a 20-year amortization. So net savings are reduced significantly from my earlier calculations, and so it's on the floor for council to debate, but I will not speak for or against.
Councillor Gilvazy is the seconder.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Martin putting the motion on the floor. I will actually speak in favor of the motion. There's so many variables when you're discussing solar projects, so you can estimate what future revenue is, but it's all weather dependent. And maintenance, I think I had seen something that there were maintenance costs in there, but they do need to be cleaned like frequently because they get like a film on it. And furthermore, if you continually have cloudy days, the revenue will drop. So I don't know how there's really any way to determine what the revenue from the solar panels will be moving forward. It's not like a black and white statement. It's really a gray area. And I've seen it in solar panels in my local area. And I even sent people up there. I'm like, are those things working? Because the revenue can be quite dismal from them at times. Thank you.
Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warden Through. I can't support the motion. I really see this project, I think, is going to win awards. And I think because it hits so many of our targets of what the county is trying to achieve. We have source water protection. We have enhancing our natural environment through, OFA is not in the audience today because I know they see this as a good program as well. We're taking active farmland, but we're doing it for the right reasons. We're taking it out of production, and we're doing it for source water protection. We're now adding solar to make it to meet our policies for renewable energy in an area that it just makes a lot of sense. Certainly, solar doesn't produce sometimes, usually at night, but I think that staff have a great history. We have many solar projects that the staff operate already, and so I think they have a good enough background to figure that out. But I really think as a whole, this project is exactly what our policies asked for, and I think staff did a great job of recognizing those, and we're going to see great results to keep clean water, naturalizing, enhancing our natural environment, which is something I want to say that I spearheaded to make sure that word was in our strategic plan, because you just can't keep it. You have to try to enhance it. The natural environment is one that always gets left out. So I can not support this because I think it does exactly what our policies have asked us to try to do. So I'll leave it there.
Councillor Mayberry.
So I can't support the motion either because I think this is fundamental to what Oxford County has claimed in the past to be more renewable energy conscious and aware. Also, I would just remind us that the ISO is telling us by 2050 that we need 75% more energy in Ontario. And I'm sure that they have a much better idea than I do on what that actually means, but it does mean that everybody has to get on board and generate power where they can and when they can. And quite frankly, I think that solar is the least cost maintenance-wise of virtually any energy production system. So if we're looking for long-term investment, it is for sure. I'm guessing it's at least 20-year payback. My own personal experience with solar has been very positive, and I would just encourage us to consider it.
Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, I am going to support the motion also. I think Councillor Gilvazy mentioned this when we adopted what we wanted in our agenda. It's not necessarily what the public wants. And I think we have to be very careful when we're spending public's money. To me, this is a want, not a need. And in these difficult economic times, when you're looking at a 20-year return, and then what? Then they're useless. So I'm going to support the motion.
Anyone else? Councillor Schaefer.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, I will support the motion as well. I think the 30-year estimate for life is a bit of a stretch. From what I've read, 20 to 25 years is more in line. They do degrade over time as well. And I just can't support something that's going to lose money until the debt is paid off. And then I don't, like I say, I don't agree with how long they're going to last after that point. So I will support the motion.
Anyone else? A couple of questions for me. The motion says that the expenses and revenue associated with the PV solar portion of the initiative be adjusted. So question for staff, what would be the expenses and revenue that would be adjusted be in 2025 and in the total life cycle cost of the proposed project?
Through the word into council. So on page 108 of the budget book, we would be removing the energy generation line as well as the debenture line and the solar maintenance contract lines.
So if there's nobody else, a follow-up then. So if I understand correctly, that would in the long run of the project be a net revenue generator, not a cost to Oxford taxpayers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Petrie.
Just to follow up on that, to clarify, this would help actually lower residents' costs in the long run?
Through the word into Council Petrie. So we are anticipating for during the debenture portion of the project, it will cost residents approximately $27,000 a year. And then after that, it would all be, we'd have the $27,000, we would have the savings of the energy, and that's assuming that the energy cost does not go up. If the energy cost goes up, it will actually be less prior to the paying off the debenture.
So, Councillor Gilvazy.
Through you, Warden. So just to confirm, it will cost the taxpayers for 20 years, and then there be potential revenue, but that potential revenue is only estimated. Like, there's a lot of variables between now and 20 years from now.
Through the word into Council Gilvazy. So we have estimated if electricity prices stay exactly the same, it'll cost the taxpayers approximately $27,000 every year. If we expect energy prices to go up, as they have over the last 15 years, we looked at that, it's gone up about 5%, then it would be paid off approximately 15 years.
And through you, Warden, so just to follow up on that, though, it's also based on the solar panels receiving X amount of sunlight to generate that revenue.
Through the Warden, that is correct, it is based on, but we have a lot of data because we have had solar panels for over a decade in Oxford County, so we know an average of how much solar power we gain per panel.
Anyone else? Councillor Schaefer.
Through to Melissa, does that include then the degradation of the panels? Is there a factor in there that the panels over time will produce less power over time?
Through the word into Councillor Schaefer, yes, that is including the degradation of the panels that we anticipate.
Anyone else? Another question for me then. So the proposed initiative would generate all the required electricity for the Thornton Wellfield then, and would that make this property independent of electricity? I was going to say fluctuations, but let's be honest, it'll be increases in cost. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Anyone else? I will absolutely be voting against this motion. I think that it is clear that it will, in the long run, not in the short term, be a revenue generator. But what would this budget be like for this council if other councils 10 and 20 years ago had made investments in the long-term future and not in the short-term future? The budget that we're looking at would be different. I would like this council to give the gift to a future council of 10 or 20 years. Some councillors sitting here, I'm guessing probably not the 10 of us, saying, boy, I'm really glad they did that because now we just make money off that thing and we don't have to pay an electricity bill. I think that is the responsibility of us, is to do that for our communities, not for the people, sitting here in this room today, but in the future. I think this makes us electricity cost independent. I personally think electricity costs in Ontario are going to go crazy at some point. We don't know exactly how that's going to go. Is it going to be more taxation to subsidize Gale and Weston's electricity bill across the board, which is what we do now? Is it going to be electricity rates going up? But it's going to go up, and we have an opportunity here to be completely independent of that and control our own electricity for this property. It's absolutely consistent with our strategic plan goals with respect to the environment and 100% renewable energy, and protects, a vital drinking water source for residents in Woodstock, and in the long run saves residents money. The fact that it's in the long run, to me, is not an argument against doing it. It just means it's going to take a little bit longer. But again, the municipality of Oxford County is going to exist for the foreseeable future, so there's somebody who's going to benefit. The fact that it might not be me, but it might be my kids, is not an argument against it, in my opinion. So I'm strongly in favor of voting against this motion and in favor of the initiative. Anybody else before I call the question? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. 10.4, notice of motion 4, Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Resolved that the budget request from Public Works for the purchase of a new road grader estimated to cost $700,000 be deferred until County Public Works has a fulsome discussion with Public Works Service Sharing Group to explore the potential for some type of service sharing arrangement that would effectively utilize the current complement of road graders owned by area municipalities within the county, and further, that if there's no viable option for sharing of services, that the county explore the potential purchase of a used grader.
Sorry, I was working with the clerk there on something. Who was the seconder for that? Okay. Councillor Mayberry is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Well, currently in the county, we have, at the area municipalities, we have 14 road graders, each being used probably less than half time. And we need a grader that will be about 300 hours a year. So I just think we should explore the opportunity for the efficiency. Could we, in fact, could the county, in fact, rent, hire, borrow equipment from the lower tiers, which we have, I wouldn't say in excess, but which we have available, and save ourselves buying the cost of a road grader. I would add to that I know that Mr. Gross has actually reached out to the area municipalities and they've started this discussion, and I very much appreciate that. And so this is not saying absolutely you can't have a grader, it's just saying I think there's a couple of steps before we get to authorizing the money for a new grader that I'd like to see us take for efficiency's sake, and I think it could be a win-win for everybody, especially when we're trying to work together.
Deputy Warden Peterson is the seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. I'll support this as well. I'd like to see more information come back, and that's why I'd like to see it deferred for a year. And I look at in Blandford-Blenheim Township, our Oxford yard and our county yard are literally joined together. They're right next to each other, and I just wonder if there is a way that they can share or possibility. So that's why I would support this. Thank you.
Councillor Martin and Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warden Ryan. A point of clarification perhaps for CEO Mr. Adley. The second part of this is, and further, that if there is no viable option for sharing, that we explore a potential purchase. If we get to that point, would that be an in-year budget amendment and a report that would come to us at a future date, if we got to that point?
Through you, Warden, I think it would be correct that staff will have to bring something back regardless. Even if we are successful in finding shared time with the area municipalities, there may be an operational impact that's not currently included in the budget to rent, so to speak, that. So that would not be included. And or after an evaluation of potential used equipment, staff would have to get authorization to spend from reserves probably for that expense as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Petrie. Sorry, did you have a follow-up? Sorry, okay. Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warren. Through you, would this motion to defer create any hardship? Is the current grader in usable service condition that's reasonably expected to last another year? Or I know that can always come back, but I'm assuming these things just don't, there's not sitting on the lot somewhere you can go pick one up tomorrow. But so just, I'm 100% in favor of always looking for opportunities to collaborate to save residents across the county money, but just want to make sure we're not putting a hardship on the county's operations.
I'd ask Manager Gross if he has if he can provide any insight on that.
Thank you, through the warden. Yeah, I believe the existing grader could still be utilized to a certain degree in 2025, but it is getting to a point where it's becoming a maintenance issue and difficult to find parts for it and so forth. So, but I think we'll investigate those options and expect we would report back to council sooner rather than later.
Follow up, Councillor Petrie, and then Deputy Warden Peterson.
So I'm assuming, sorry, just to follow up, I'm assuming this would come from, this purchase would come from reserves, correct?
Through the warden, yes, that's correct.
And is there any levy impact this year associated with the grader?
Through the warden, I don't believe so.
So I guess is there any harm with this leaving it in the budget, and if we come to an agreement where you don't need it, then therefore the money will just stay in reserves and we don't have to authorize? What I'm afraid about is if we defer it, that process, if we do need one, if that discussions come out, it's a net positive to leave the money in the bank. But if those talks aren't fruition for whatever, it's great that we have those as information comes together. Okay, that's not a viable option and we need the grader, then we don't have the money and we have to wait a year, we're behind. I don't see that the harm in leaving it in the budget, but directing this to happen, yeah.
Through you, Warden, maybe in response to that, that is a other possible avenue. Staff can, and as mentioned, already have started to explore the sharing opportunities, see if they exist, and if that is feasible, continue to do that. Our purchasing policy already does allow for assessment of used equipment when appropriate, so we could utilize that from the purchasing policy already to look at to used options, and then spend only what portion out of the reserves that would be required for that.
Deputy Warden Peterson, then Councillor Mayberry.
Yeah, I just got a question as well. Thank you, Warden. I'm just curious with the talks that you've had with the, I know you've talked to all the areas. What's the sense from them now, or maybe you don't want to say that now, but I'm just curious, what's the sense from them if they think this is a viable option? Because I know things like weather could change things, like if we get rain for a month and you want to borrow our grader, then all of a sudden, we need it or whatever. I'm just curious what the sense is from the other municipalities.
Through the warden, yeah, some of the issues that were raised are timing, where typically at least the rural townships, they're using their graders at a specific time to grade their gravel roads after the winter and so forth. The other issue is the county's grader that's proposed for replacement is a smaller capacity used for shoulder grading and some of the narrow shoulders. So, and where the area municipalities have the larger standard size graders. So it is doable with certain attachments. So some of the municipalities don't have the attachments, don't have the extra capacity. But generally there's a willingness to consider something that's viable, but those are the concerns that were raised. So.
Councillor Mayberry.
Thank you, Warden. I would just point out that the motion actually says that we defer a decision or defer purchasing a grader until after a conversation has gone on, not that we defer for a year or until further budget discussion. So I would just point that out. The second thing is that looking for a used grader, Frank told us at the last meeting that the grader runs 300 to 350 hours a year. Most people would suggest that any piece of heavy equipment should run for 700 to 1,000 hours a year. I'm not sure that we actually need a brand new piece of equipment. And I would also remind us that the county doesn't have any gravel roads. So there isn't a lot of road repair. Most of the work that this grader is going to be doing is shoulder repair. And that's probably not quite as time sensitive as like road repair in the spring, to Councillor Peterson's point. Thank you.
Councillor Petrie.
So just for clarification, I have a different interpretation of what the motion says than what Councillor Mayberry put forward, because it says that resolve that the budget request from Public Works for the purchase of a new grader be deferred. And to me, that takes that out of, I'd like to know what the interpretation of that, because it's saying if we do not, if we're deferring the budget request, that money's not available, in my opinion.
So, I don't know.
Through you, Warden, and that is how staff have interpreted at this point. If you see chart 2 of attachment 1, we have taken that out of the the budget to spend the 700,000 on capital budget. So that's how we've interpreted it. Again, we can always come back to council mid-year and say, here's the findings we have, you know, do you authorize us to spend that out of reserves or not?
Councillor Mayberry.
I hate to go back to public school grammar, but in fact, if you read the motion, it says $700,000 be deferred until. There is no comma there, which says that it is a continuing statement, and the continuing statement is until County Works has had this discussion. There is no comma. If there was a comma, I would agree with you. There is no comma, and therefore, it's deliberately written that way so that it says we just defer until a certain point in time. That certain point in time is not a dollar number, not a date. It was a conversation between Public Works at the county level and Public Works at the area level.
Through your word, to that point, then, I would suggest that the only change would be then in that chart in attachment 1, where it indicates a reduction of $700,000 in expense and $700,000 in capital budget, would then just be blanks, the same as some of the other non-impacting notice of motions.
What, can you tell me that chart and table again? I'm trying to follow along here.
So that is attachment 1.
There, I got it. Thank you. Table 2, correct?
Table 2, yeah.
Yeah. Line number 4, okay. All right. Councillor Mayberry.
I would just remind us that this has zero impact on the tax levy. It is completely through reserves. And that's why, in my mind, having a conversation and then at some point having to make a decision, which may come back to council, fine with me, is relatively mute because we're going to make a decision, yes or no. But it isn't going to impact the tax levy.
So I have a loaded question for you here. So your suggestion is that the intention of your motion is to defer the purchase until the conversation happens and not to defer the allocation in the budget. Is that correct?
That's absolutely what the motion says.
So then I would rule this motion out of order because the motion that we're considering today is the budget. And since it sounds like, and I give you another opportunity to speak to this, it sounds like the intention of your motion is not to amend the budget, but to direct staff to do other work before they enact the purchase that's in the budget, that this motion's not relevant to the agenda item that we have.
Sorry, Warden, and maybe just to correct that, it is part of the business plan to authorize the expenditure for that. Based on the fact that it is less than $1 million in expenses, it would not, if authorized in the budget, would not have to come back to council for authorization later on.
So then your staff's understanding is that the motion on the floor would amend the business plan as opposed to the budget?
Correct.
Okay. I'll buy that. Anybody else on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I think we're at 11:46 and lunch should be here. We're surely not going to get done at a reasonable time. I think we take, what, half an hour? Anybody? Half an hour? 12:15? All right. You ready to go, Lindsay? 12:16, I'll call the meeting back to order. I know everybody is keen. So we are at 10.5, notice of motion 5. Councillor Mayberry. One second. Who's the seconder? Okay. Councillor Mayberry, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion? Can I just ask the seconder if they wish to speak to the motion before the amendment is on the floor then?
I'll wait for the amendment.
Thank you. And further, that the annual base contribution to the Affordable Housing Reserve be utilized to support the creation of various housing options across the housing continuum in support of the priorities of the Housing for All plan and accompanying strategies. And it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin.
The amendment as well?
Yes.
So, you have that? Thank you. Councillor Mayberry, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes. Well, very briefly, I apologize for this. It probably should have been in the original motion. It's more just for clarification that the intent of the increase in the base funding for affordable housing be used wherever most appropriate. And given that we're going to have some interesting conversations in the next few months, particularly pertaining to the Building Better Fund money, I wanted this to be as broad as possible so that we didn't kind of sort of force ourselves into a corner. So that's the intent of the amendment, is to make sure that council understands that this is to be as broad of understanding of how the funding could be used. Thank you.
Councillor Martin, as the seconder of the amendment, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes, to the amendment, I would like to say that I support that of various housing options allows staff to address, to issue money and address projects where they are most needed in that moment, rather than having to continually come to council and change and shift priorities as opportunities are presented to them. And so I support the amendment of various housing options rather than limiting it to just affordable housing options.
Anyone else? Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. I want to thank Councillor Mayberry for bringing this forward with the amendment as well, because of the fact I think it is so important as we're moving forward, looking at what could be coming in the future. Again, we don't have that information yet, but this gives staff, county staff, the freedom to use the money and suggest it as needed. So thank you.
Councillor Petrie, Deputy Warden Peterson.
I have a question for clarification. Is the amendment to just the extra $1 million, or is that description would be the $4 million? Would that pertain to all the dollars allocated in that?
So two things then, I think. First thing is, Councillor Mayberry, could I get you to read the amendment again so the council can hear the wording, and then could I get you to speak to your intention behind the wording? Just want to be totally clear.
So the amendment says, and further, that the annual base contribution to the Affordable Housing Reserve be utilized to support the creation of various housing options across the housing continuum in support of the priorities of the Housing for All plan and accompanying strategies. So the, I appreciate Councillor Way, apologize for that. Do you want me to start again? No, you don't, okay. My intent was that that the full amount be available for the most important issues, but I would I'd be happy if we have the extra $1 million available for that. So my intent was, as it says, that it go across the whole funding.
Does that,
That's an answer, and if I could further to that, I don't know if I can support that amendment based on, I think it creates more confusion and rather than clarity about what that money is for, and for staff to be able to plan for that. I'm worried that, I'm sure staff are making plans. I don't know if I have enough information to be able to support it this time. I am worried about opening up the meaning of what that fund is for, and having unintended consequences of that. I also don't, so the amendment is just for what it can be used, so I'll leave my comments for the rest of it.
Deputy Warden?
Councillor Petrie and I actually agreed it was the same question, so thank you.
Anyone else? I fully support the amendment. I think that this is completely consistent with the idea behind our master housing strategy, was that we wanted to enable our staff to go and find the opportunities, find the bottlenecks, and spend the money on where those bottlenecks are. I think, to be frank, I consider it a failing in myself that I didn't recognize at the time that where those bottlenecks are and where those opportunities are broader than affordable housing. At any given point in time, that the need might be in transitional housing, it might be in emergency shelter, it might be in a homelessness service center, and I don't want our staff to have to stop and not explore a thing because, strictly speaking, I can only spend this $3 or $4 million on this thing. So now I got to write a report and go back to council. I think we've given our staff clear enough direction to say 100% housed. Developing a homelessness response strategy, master housing strategy. I think we should absolutely be enabling our staff to take this money, whether it's $3 or $4 million, and look for where the bottleneck is. Sometimes the best way to make space in an emergency shelter is to make a transitional housing unit and get somebody out of the emergency shelter. I don't want to spend more money on an emergency shelter than we have to if staff are like, I have an opportunity to develop that. So I think the amendment on the floor expanding that money is 100% appropriate to achieving the goals that this council has set previously. So I will be speaking, I am in support of the amendment to the extent that if the original motion, amended or not, fails, I would be bringing a motion similar to this amendment to a future council meeting to enable our staff to do that work. Anybody else before I call the question? Deputy Warden.
Yeah, I guess my biggest concern is, I look back a year ago and staff's recommendation was 1 million, and we added 2 more to make it 3 million.
We're just talking about the amendment.
Yep, okay. All right, I'll wait then.
Anybody else on the amendment?
I was kind of going to get to the amendment, but...
All those in favor? Well, keep your hands up for a second. Just want to be sure. Thank you. All those opposed? Motion is carried. So now, can I just get the clerk to read the amended motion, and then I'll ask the mover and seconder again to speak if they want to speak to that.
Thank you, Warden. Resolve that the $3 million base amount for affordable housing previously established by Oxford County Council be increased to $4 million for 2025 and subsequent. And further, that the annual base contribution to the Affordable Housing Reserve be utilized to support the creation of various housing options across the housing continuum in support of the priorities of the Housing for All plan and accompanying strategies.
Councillor Mayberry is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Warden. I think we all recognize that we have a problem with housing. I think we all recognize that this is a tough budget year, as all budget years are tough, and that this actually adds to the rate. And I acknowledge that. I want to put that right out front. But I also realize that we're facing some pretty challenging issues going forward. And one of them has to do with what are we going to and what will the program look like that will utilize the funding from the provincial government. The other thing is that in not increasing it, as the warden kind of alluded to a moment ago, we actually stifle the ability of staff to try new things or to go further. Now, a simple example of that would be on Dundas Street here, where the 36, I think it's 36 units, is being built. This extra $1 million would give us an extra 8 units out of that, and or potentially 8 units there that we desperately need. If I understand correctly, we're a couple thousand units behind. We have committed as a council to 50 units per year. Our current budget of $3 million, even if it were totally used for housing and not for repair and all the other things, we would be somewhere less than around 25, and I don't expect a whole lot of funding from other sources. So I guess I think that as much as I don't relish the idea of increasing taxes to pay for additional affordable housing, I am completely convinced from reading any kind of research on the subject that says if you don't pay for affordable housing through housing, you're going to pay for it somewhere else. For me, this is a simple return on investment. We get a good return on investment when we house people. I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Martin is the second.
Thank you, Warden Ryan. When this motion originally came forward, my mindset was, will $1 million towards affordable housing in 2025 truly make a difference? Because we have a number of affordable housing unit projects in the queue, and so my original thought was, is $1 million right now going to make a difference? But with the amendment to allow for a broader scope, a broader spectrum of allowing staff to spend on projects in addition to many of the affordable housing units that are in the queue, I am in full support of adding the $1 million for 2025.
Anyone else? Councillor Petrie, Deputy Warden Peterson, Councillor Gilvazy.
Yeah, I wasn't supportive of the amendment, and I won't be a support of the motion. I agree with Councillor Mayberry's comments about the need, but I think we can't do this alone, and I'm interested in seeing the reports that are going to come to get that information and the strategy ahead of time, and then try to build a system out of that with information. I know there's always money needed. I see it's a 1.2 budget or percentage increase. I think that the $3 million base is an investment. Is it enough? Never enough. But this year I just can't support it. I just mostly I would like to have further conversations on the idea of the amendment to fully understand that and may be able to support that in the future with more information. But at this time, I'm going to have to say no on this one.
I think I had Deputy Warden Peterson and then Councillor Gilvazy.
Thank you, Warden. I'll start where I left off before, but I look at a year ago, staff came here to us recommending $1 million towards affordable housing. And we decided, and I think it's great that we did, to increase it to $3 million, which I think is fantastic. Personally, I don't think there's enough money to really solve the whole issue through the taxpayer. And I've had many residents come to me and say, you're taxing me to death. I'm going to lose my home if we keep taxing. And it's not that I'm saying that it's wrong. I think it's great that you want to add that money. But I think we're at that point where we're creating a problem to solve a problem. And that's my biggest concern. Where do we stop? Do we add another million another year and another? We're at that point now where with some of the things we talked about earlier in our budget process, we're going to be at a 10+% tax increase again. That's a double digit. We're looking at, you know, 25+% over 2 years. And I have a hard time doing that, putting that on the taxpayers. It's not that I'm against affordable housing or any of it. I'm 100% on it. We donated land for affordable housing, so I'm 100% in favor of it. But I think there comes to a point where we have to be careful that we're not creating a problem to solve a problem. And I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Gilvazy.
Thank you, Warden. Very well said. I totally concur. So with the resolution, I do agree that hopefully in the future we could have the conversation about the second part, the amended part. I will not support putting the additional $1 million in because I do think we are creating an undue hardship onto our community. We could put $10 million into this problem and not solve it. We all know that sitting around the table, there's not enough money to solve the problem. But I also think that there is economies of scale changes that are coming, like reduction in immigration might put less pressure on housing. We might see a free up of rental units. Houses are not moving. Spoke to a developer the other night. They are not moving. So at some point in time, if things don't sell, prices have to come down. So I think that we are, hopefully going to see some adjustments moving forward. Thank you.
Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, and I completely agree, you made a lot of sense this time, Councillor Peterson. And I think the other issue people forget is every time we add to the property tax, we're affecting renters. So if we are charging more for property tax, then the rent goes up. So we are completely defeating the whole process. And you are correct, we are creating more unaffordable housing with the increase in rent. And further to Councillor Gervais, the last number I heard was 4.5 million immigrants that are here now are supposed to go back. So they're saying the rental market is going to implode, which will be helpful because the rents will go down. Housing has completely stopped. Nobody's building spec, so I cannot put another percent or even 0.5%, but a 1.5% onto the taxpayer at this time.
Anyone else? Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you. I will not be supporting this. $1 million seems like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but my township residents already are burdened enough with taxes. They don't need to spend any more. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Mabry.
So appreciate the concern about increasing taxes. I think I alluded to that earlier, but I would also just remind us that every time we leave someone unhoused, that they cost us money somewhere else, and there is no free ride here. So I tend to say I'd rather spend money on solving a problem than spending money putting a Band-Aid on a problem, and that's one of the reasons why I think we need to invest in housing.
Councillor Gervais.
Thank you. I think that makes some assumptions that it's all, economic reasons that our people are homeless, but it's so much more than that, and it's all the other supports that go with it. So just building houses isn't actually getting to the root problem of mental health or drug addiction, and it isn't actually going to solve the problem, right? I think that there's a whole host of things that need to come together. It's not just the housing.
Anyone else? Councillor Petrie.
Yeah, I just want to clarify my position on this. I think, again, I want to see the reports. I want to see a strategy that says maybe $1 million more is not enough to fund the work that we need to do. Maybe it is. Maybe it's too much. I know probably not. But that's where I'm coming from. Is I want to support the number that's correct. I don't want to support a blanket number. Not knowing where that investment level needs to be. I think we'll have some reports come in this next year that will help clarify that with strategic direction, and then we can see where those dollars need to be spent, and by what in what area. So I look forward to those and having those conversations at this time. It's just timing for me, as I just don't have enough that information to see where that investment level needs to be.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. I'm just kind of sitting here amazed that we're talking about putting money towards something that is clearly one of the biggest problems we have here in Oxford County. We talk about $2 million for solar and the benefits of that in the future. Well, what better return on investment than putting it into housing right now, today? I'm really sitting here blown away that we can't recognize the number one issue we're facing, and giving the freedom. And again, I'll speak to it, the amendment, I really like it. I think giving staff the opportunity to use that money the best way forward is fantastic, because we don't know what it looks like. We don't know if it's going to build new homes or it's going to do a shelter system or what that's going to look like. Let's let staff have this opportunity, take a decent amount of funding, and let's see what that looks like. So I'll certainly be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Anyone else? as all of you know, generally quite opinionated on these kinds of things. But I'm genuinely torn on this because I think there's like good arguments on both sides as to, you know, when is it enough, right? Is 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 20 million, 30 million? And I think there is a line, right? I mean, we know there must be, right? If I put on my, you know, dated engineering hat now, like there is a limit and when you reach that limit, it is no longer doing any more good. I don't know what that number is though. And to Councillor Gilvazy's point, we know that without mental health and addiction supports, and treatment and recovery, we're limited. Just providing somebody with 4 walls and a roof alone does not negate the reasons that that person became homeless, unless their reasons for becoming homeless were exclusively economic, which is the case for some, but not all. We know this based on the data that our staff have given us in reports about the number of people that are on a by name list and the reasons that they're on that list. So I think there's a limit, and we need to understand what that limit is. The other problem, though, is that there are, like, it snowed again today, and there are people in Oxford County living in tents. And to Councillor Accione's point, not to be too pointed, but there were some members of this council who voted against the entirety of the budget last year, which included money for homelessness response, which included affordable housing. And some members of council voted that entire budget. So this council has absolutely decided in the past that we're not going to prioritize money on affordable housing, and other members of council decided that they would. So I think we need to keep that big picture in mind. And to Councillor Mayberry's point, some of our area municipal partners absolutely spend money. The city of Woodstock, one municipality alone, is going to spend probably several $100,000 this year alone on encampment response. Now, I know that's not, you know, this council's business, strictly speaking, but we're all in this together, right? I mean, there's residents of Zora Township who are living in encampments in Woodstock, where Woodstock pays hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean up an encampment, and this council could come together on behalf of all residents of Oxford County and say, let's build more housing for those people. Per the amendment, that housing could be an expanded homelessness service center that moves people out of that encampment, through emergency shelter, and on to transitional housing as fast as possible. It could be another affordable unit to get somebody out of that transitional unit and into an affordable unit, wherever the bottleneck is. And when we sit here, as we did this morning for I don't know how long, about an hour, even considering spending upwards of $1 million on the convenience of having our waste picked up from the end of our driveway, and then we say, but I'm not sure if I want to spend another $1 million on getting somebody out of a tent or under a bridge. I really struggle with that as a human being. So I will absolutely be voting in support of this motion, conflicted as I was on it, because I know there is a limit and I don't know what the limit is. But if we're even going to consider spending upwards of $1 million to make it easier or harder for somebody to remember which day a truck is going to come and collect their garbage, I find it hard to stomach the idea of saying, but I'm not going to spend less than that to try and get a house for somebody. So I will be voting in support of the motion. Anybody else before I call the question? Councillor Tate.
Yeah, just through the chair. So the garbage thing affects 99.9% of the population for Oxford County. So I understand the debate and the concern. We are talking about how many people, and this is not going to help the issue with the homeless people in the encampments. I think, as Councillor Gilvazy said, it's a deep-rooted problem. You can throw as much money as you want at it. It's not going to solve that unless you have the province with the mental health and addiction. I think the study came out, and the root is not economic condition for the homeless. So let's not be dramatic about this, and the rest of us that are voting against it are not looking to help. We are, but we have to look after the entire population, and we are putting more people into unaffordable housing, the greater population, every time we increase the budget. So I understand the concern. Everybody's concerned, but this has an impact on every single homeowner, and we are making it unaffordable for people to own homes. I think that's the bigger issue that we have to understand. In Woodstock alone, we have the highest taxes around. The news stories are even talking about us now because our taxes are so high. So I understand wanting to help the people that don't have housing right now, but we also have to help the people that own their houses or trying to stay in their houses, because we are making it unaffordable.
Anyone else? Councillor Petrie.
Yeah, to be clear, I certainly I want to do what we have to do to solve this issue that we're facing with affordability. We can't do it alone. The problem I have here is that we had a motion to add a base amount to funding, and then we had an amendment on the day of come forward that fundamentally changes what that money's for. Fundamentally changes what what we put the $3 million at last year, and now we're going to have more money and fundamentally change that. I can't support it without knowing exactly the information around that and what that means. It doesn't mean I won't in the future, but I think at this point, up until 5 minutes ago, I didn't know that was the intention. So I can't just like that and go, this is what we want to do, and this is the amount that needs to be there. We'll get there, and we'll have good data to come in and make an educated choice on where that goes, whether it's, we'll have the information in the Homeless Service Center, we'll have it the pathway out of homelessness, see where those investments need to be made, and if it says we need $5 million, well, then I'll probably put my hand up for that. But at this point, I just can't with the information I have.
Anyone else? Councillor Mayberry.
Just a couple quick comments. I actually agree with a couple of comments made. One is that housing doesn't solve all the problems, but in fact, housing is the start of the solution to the problems. We're not in charge of mental health. We're not in charge of addictions. We're not in charge of abuse and those sort of things. Those are other levels of government, and they need to cough up too. No question about that. I would say, though, that we're not going to solve all the problem with $1 million. At best, we might get 8 new units, which would be good for 8 more families, something like that. But I do take exception to the comment about throwing money, because I've never had a lot of money in my life, and I've always been very careful in not throwing it away. I don't donate to charities, I invest in things. And I invest, and I believe we should invest, and I think most people in Oxford County believe we should invest in those who are homeless. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm going to call a question, and I think this is going to be close, so I need you to all keep your hands up for a second. Those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is defeated. And notice of motion 10.6, notice of motion 6, Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Mayberry, that the project identified as 930119 CR119 in the 2025 long-term capital plan move forward to have the work identified for 2026 and 2027 to be included in the 2025 capital year, and further that the work identified for 2028 be moved ahead so that the substantial completion of the project can take place in 2027, and further that that amount be added to the budget to be able to provide resource capacity to manage the project at the new timeline.
Councillor Petrie, as the mover, do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I've circulated information to my council colleagues before, so the argument is in that, and I appreciate everybody's time for taking a look at that and questions. I see that staff have provided a number of approximately just over $21,000 in the budget document for that increased management for that project. I'm certainly here to answer any concerns or questions that come up from it, but certainly this is one that's important to deal with the growth that has happened and is going to happen in that specific area to avoid other situations that we've seen in the county where things become dangerous before they happen. And I think there's more than enough data there to make that happen, as well as give staff the resources to be able to make sure that that can happen and not put undue hardship on the municipality.
Councillor Mayberry is the seconder.
I supported the motion. I think that this is a case clearly where we're trying to plan forward, and the work that the town requires to have done on county property is good for the whole county, I would add. But it's also a case of we want to be kind of lockstep on through this process, and so I support the project or I support the motion because I think it moves us forward in a more progressive manner. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Schaefer.
Thank you, Warden, through you. I'll support this motion. I think it's very similar to what we did on the Punky Doodles Corner upgrades that we provided. The difference, though, I think we're getting ahead of the curve here, no pun intended, but to get ahead of this and to solve these issues before they become more serious issues, so I'll support this.
Anyone else? I have a couple questions for staff on this. So the motion says to amend the budget to be able to provide resource capacity to manage the project at the new timeline. So in the context of Council's previously adopted Transportation Master Plan, if Council just allocated these additional resources, is this the project that would be prioritized by the master plan?
Through the word into council, so staff did look at all capital projects that we have upcoming, and this one is acceptable to move forward. We didn't see any other ones that are in need at this time.
And second question, the added resources that are required to do this, is this going to be how's this going to work? The added resource, is that going to be an FTE, a contracted consultant position, something like that, or what is that resource add going to look like?
So right now, this has been added into the budget with an additional FTE that was planned for 2027 in our 5-year operational budget.
Anyone else before I call the question? Some confused faces, but I'm not seeing anyone. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10.7, notice of motion 7, Councillor Petrie.
Thank you, Warden. I'll just get my screen to move back here. Move by myself, second by Councillor Mayberry, that $5,000 be added as a 2025 budget increase to the 2025 budget for the use of the Accessibility Committee to promote awareness of the committee's work and the issue of accessibility across the county.
Councillor Petrie is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, as a council rep on the Accessibility Committee, I think if we're tasking our groups, our committees to do stuff, then we need to be able to provide funds to be able to do that. The committee is very active. They want to provide awareness to be able to provide the work that they're doing and the important work of accessibility throughout the county. They provide support. Many of our municipalities do not have accessibility committees due to their sizing, but I think there's a great synergy there to be able to raise awareness for accessibility. It's something that affects us all, and without the budget, it makes it hard for those funds to be used or to be allocated, and it creates an easier solution for staff than trying to find funding elsewhere. It's a clear direction and provides that opportunity. I know the Accessibility Committee has come up with a number of ideas around celebrating Accessibility Week, as well as having attend at different events to hand out information on accessibility. I know it's a little bit outside the mandate, but that's gets people excited and keeps them coming back to want to do that work. So I'll leave it there.
Councillor Mayberry is the seconder.
Thank you, Warden. Just a very brief comment. I know that at the lower tier level, we have used the Accessibility Committee on a number of times to help us sort of understand problems and to take a look at some of the facilities within the township that, well, as a county committee, granted, we don't have our own, and it's great to have a committee there. And so to support them by having them have the opportunity to be out and be more aware, not just for municipal governments or anything, but for the public in general, I think it's a good thing. I don't think $5,000 is a lot, and I think it's a case of it may bring us more value than we expect. Thank you.
Anyone else? I won't be supporting this. I think it says to promote awareness. We have a comms department. The draft budget that's in front of us that proposes additional FTE to the communications department, and nobody's suggested taking it out. I'm confident that any awareness promotion that the committee needs could probably be facilitated by communications department. I'm wary too of giving $5,000 to one committee but not others, and there's nothing in here about updating the terms of reference as to how this $5,000 would or wouldn't be spent. I'm not saying that I don't think the members of the committee are irresponsible, but I think we do have terms of reference for committees for a reason, and right now the terms of reference gives no scope whatsoever to what the $5,000 would be spent on. Additionally, at the risk of repeating myself, probably many of you have heard me say this, if somebody comes to me with a really terrible idea, well, all they want is $5, I'm not giving them $5. But if they come to me with a great idea and ask for $5,000, I'm going to say, well, are you sure $5,000 is enough? Because if it's really worth it, I don't want it to fail because it's underfunded. So without knowing, what this would be, other than promoting awareness, which I think our comms department is more than capable of promoting awareness, I won't be in support of giving $5,000 to one committee and not others, and not updating the terms of reference as to what the $5,000 is to be used for. So I'm not opposed to the idea of enabling our committees to do more, but to me, there's not enough meat on these bones here to decide that there's value in it for $5,000 or $50,000 without knowing what's going to be done other than promoting awareness, which I think our comms group can do. So I'll be voting against it. Anybody else before? Councillor Petrie.
Yeah, just to clarify, there's $10,000 in the budget this year that staff put in for the Active Transportation Committee. That's already in the budget for the same type of work. And yeah, the comms department does do, but this, if there's anything that would be specific, this would be used. They could be used to allocate that work for the comms committee. It's not in their budget plan to do that work at this point. So this is something that gives them the ability to plan that out and learn. Not only that, to learn. It's important for committee members to learn how municipal government works in budget cycles so they can plan. Committees cannot spend money without council approval as it is, so it would have to be in the minutes or approval of the minutes or something like that. I think there's controls there, but I think by empowering people to get out there and do more, that you get way better results than if you're just sticking tightly to the thing. But I understand where you're coming from, but there is money in the budget for other committees.
Anyone else? Councillor Atchison.
Thank you, through you, Warden. I think you summed it up well. That's what's been nagging at me with this one as well. I don't, $5,000 I think is a fair chunk of change for just communications, if that's really the intent of this, and I'm not exactly sure that, as the Warden mentioned, that isn't being redundant. So for that reason, I won't be supporting it.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. So having covered all of the notices of motion and their associated amendments that were put forward by council for the budget, I'm going to suggest that we take a break now, solid 15 minutes, let staff collate all the results of all the changes that we have made, and I really want to encourage the 9 of you to think about who's ready to move and second what staff are going to come up with a filled in blanks. So give them a few minutes, and maybe 1 or 2 of you head over there and talk to them about whether you're ready to move and second what they've got together there, and we'll come back when that dust has all settled and there will be a motion on the floor. So that's the focus for the break. So give staff a few minutes and then get ready to move and second something, and we'll come back at 1:10. It's 1:11. I'll call the meeting back to order, and on the screen is the summary of the budget that you have amended, and I think at this point I'll just ask for the motion to adopt the budget, and we'll take questions and comments on that motion, which I think is Councillor Martin or Schaefer? Schaefer.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin. Resolved that the recommendations contained in Report CS 2024-49 titled 2025 Business Plans and Budget be adopted as amended.
Councillor Schaefer is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I want to thank council and staff for their hard work on this budget. I think it's a budget that I hope receives broad support. Thank you.
Councillor Martin is the seconder.
I'll echo what Councillor Schaefer said. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Petrie.
Yeah, I'll certainly be supporting this. We went through the process. These are the numbers that we talked about, and at the end of the day, this is really a ratification of the process, and I think this is, the process worked. We all had our discussions, we had our say, we voted, and this is the numbers we came out to. So certainly echo those comments of all the work that staff put in this. We get to end it today, but they start again for next year. So thank you very much for all that work.
Councillor Gilvazy.
Hello, thank you, Warden. I'm seeking clarification. So with the new levy amount, and this sits at an increase of 8.8, is new growth out of that? And what's the tax rate implication? Impact per household? Yeah, impact per household. That's great, thanks.
Through the Warden to Councillor Gavese, it'll take us a bit of time to make that calculation. We expect to have that information along with a news release available hopefully for the end of the week. But in the meantime, I can say that 8.8% is just the levy increase, the general levy increase. So it doesn't necessarily reflect that same amount when it's calculated into a tax rate, and then the effect on the average property or average household. So again, we'll have those calculations hopefully by the end of the week for you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Question from myself, just to clarify. So the 8.8 also does not include growth in assessment, correct? This is the net levy increase. Any other questions? Comments? I think this is a very responsible budget for council to pass, largely echoing Councillor Schaefer's comments. Not as challenging as last year, but still challenging and frankly in many of the same ways. I think I would encourage council and residents to realize that if it was not for the budget that we passed last year, this budget would of necessity be greater than 8.8%. I think some of our neighboring municipalities, I've talked to some councillors in Stratford and London and areas who worked really hard to get theirs down to sort of single digits last year and are now looking at very, very high single digits or double digits again this year. I did some back of the envelope analysis last year on London's multi-year budget, and their multi-year increases that they approved last year that were single digit over the next few years are probably going to amount to over the entire term of council greater than ours were, even including last year's large budget. I think in the end there's, for the services that our residents get, there are bills to be paid. I think that's a feature, not a flaw of municipal government, that we can't borrow to cover operating costs, so we pay the bill for whatever we want to have or don't want to have. And I think the change in service level in last year's budget facilitates getting the budget that we have this year. I'm hopeful that in future years we can still get down to more like the traditional levy increases that we have had in Oxford in the past, but frankly I'm guarded in that as long as we do not have the mental health and addiction supports from our provincial partners that are going to help us with housing, policing, fire, ambulance, encampment response, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As long as those pressures exist, it's going to be hard for us to get that down. But I do think this is a responsible budget. And I also want to say what Councillor Schaefer said. I want to thank council and staff for the work that we did to get to this point in the budget, the thoughtful and researched motions that were put forward to amend it, and the hard work that staff did in putting the draft budget in front of us. And a reminder also that while we made some significant changes to the budget, you know, overall, relatively minor in terms of what we're tasking staff to do. I think they have read council well in terms of the initiatives they put forward. We've accepted all the new initiatives they put forward, and I think that means that our strategic plan is working and our staff are listening to the policies that council pass, and therefore I would encourage council to continue enacting, you know, policies, because our staff are clearly listening, bringing us a budget that it seems like we're content with. Any other discussion before I call the question? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And just gonna catch my breath there for a second. Unfinished business, there's a list of pending items there that basically will all evaporate now with the business we've conducted today. The motions all are gone, and we are down to 10.8, election of deputy warden. Deputy Warden Peterson for the last time.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by Peterson, second by Councillor Accioni. Resolved that Council proceed to elect the deputy warden in accordance with Section 5 of Oxford County Procedure Bylaws 6268-2020 as amended, and Resolution Number 3 dated November 23rd, 2022, reserving that term of office for position of deputy warden be it 1 year and subsequent nominee dates to occur on December 13th, 2023. I guess we don't need that, do we? Do we need to read pass? Okay, sorry. Occur on December 13th, 2023, December 11th, 2024, and December 10th, 2025.
Deputy Warden Peterson is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Sorry. I just want to start off by thanking all of council for entrusting me in this job. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. If anybody gets a chance, I highly recommend it. It was really a lot of things. I learned a lot of things, especially when I was sitting in the chair and people were making me think. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to all of you, and I want to say a special thank you to both Lindsay and Chloe that isn't here, because they really helped me a lot with the pre-meeting kind of thing, and also to our CAO, Ben. Thank you very much for everything you've done to help me along the way, and all of staff, and especially to Warden Ryan. Thank you. You've really helped me a lot in learning different things. Procedurally wise, not my strong point, so I've learned a lot over this term, but thank you very much.
Anyone else? Councillor Accioni.
As a seconder on the motion, I just want to thank Deputy Warden Peterson for the work he did, and I think you should wear that jacket throughout the rest of the year.
Anyone else? I want to thank the Deputy Warden for his work over the last year. I think we've done the Deputy Warden job a little bit different, like it's grown a little bit, and that's due in no small part to the interest and the energy that you brought to it. And I also know that it's been a particularly challenging year for personally for you and your family, and it was challenging at times for you to do all that you wanted to do in the role, and I want to acknowledge that and thank you for the effort that you did put into it. It was certainly of value to me in this chair to have you do that. And I mean that mostly outside the times where you actually took the chair for me. I appreciate that, but I think, as you've pointed out to me several times, it's a lot of time it's the little work that happens outside of the actual meeting, facilitating it all happening and getting it all ready that's so valuable, and that's been of great value to me, so I want to thank you for that. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Resolved that Brian Petrie be nominated for the position of Deputy Warden for the 2025 term.
Councillor Tate, as the mover, do you wish to speak to that?
Just one comment. Hopefully you don't talk as much when you're the Deputy Warden.
Is that would you like to move an amendment?
I would love to, but I won't. No, seriously, I think Brian would do a great job if he doesn't talk.
Deputy Warden Peterson as the seconder, do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I'd like to comment and as well, but unfortunately it's 1:20 and we only have till 2:30. So I'm going to leave it at that. I won't give you any tips. You'll learn them on your own. And all I suggest is, Warden Ryan, when you have your agenda reviews, that you bring your gavel with you. Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? I mean, did you not hear her? Councillor Petrie.
All I'm going to say is that's been a constant complaint in my life, and I don't think it's going to change. Also, if you've met my family, I don't talk that much. So maybe it's a natural-born thing for politicians. Anyway, I am extremely honored, and I thank the nomination, and I certainly I want to thank Deputy Warden Peterson for his advice, and certainly looking forward to that. You know, it's an amazing honor to be able to do this, and I certainly will take the job seriously. I want to be able to offer support to Mayor Warden Ryan in any which way he needs to make sure that he can perform at his utmost, because you know, we were really well served by him in that position. So I'm looking forward to the year. I know it's going to be busier. I don't know if my wife is looking forward to it, but she's supportive as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will try to give it the honor it deserves. Thank you.
I mean, you haven't got it yet, remember. They got to vote. Don't count your chickens. So I haven't seen anybody speak to wanting to nominate anybody else, so therefore, Deputy Warden Peterson, now it's actually the last time. No, why? Oh, sorry, yeah, we have to, yeah, sorry. Nobody has said otherwise, so for the motion on the floor to nominate Councillor Petrie as Deputy Warden, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Deputy Warden Peterson, still.
Thank you. Moved by Peterson, second by Councillor Tate. Resolved that nominations for the office of Deputy Warden be closed.
Any discussion?
Yep, that's it.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. No notices of motions. Any inquiries for staff? Oh, all right. I declare Councillor Petrie, Councillor Brian Petrie as Deputy Warden-elect for the 2025 term. And actually, would you like to speak to that? Wise. So he's learning already. No notices of motions. Are there any inquiries for staff? Not seeing any. Bylaws. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Peterson. Resolved that the following bylaws be read a first and second time, 6694-2024 and 6695-2024.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, second by, is it Councillor Peterson, or is there still Deputy Warden here? I guess that's where I'm
still
second
Deputy
guessing
Warden,
myself.
technically.
Okay, so my apologies, Deputy Warden Peterson. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Warden Peterson for the last time, I believe. Resolved that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading, 6694-2024 and 6695-2024.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And adjournment. Deputy Warden Peterson.
Moved by Peterson, second by future Deputy Warden Petrie. Resolved the council meeting of December 11th, 2024 be adjourned until the next meeting scheduled for January 8th, 2025.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Congratulations, well done, Mark.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, really did.
I'm glad